Hello and welcome to episode 210 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And I think we'll start off with some March Madness because it's been a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching Oral Roberts in the tournament, and they just came up short yesterday, and it was a great shot they got off that would have won the game. They were fun to watch. They were confident in themselves, and they weren't intimidated by anybody they played.
No.
My real surprise team was Oregon State, and I think Oregon State can make the Final Four. And I know they were a 12 seed, but they play really shut down, locked down defense. They have taken every team they played and not let them do what they do best. They don't let you get inside, and if you're not hitting everything from three, and they can test the threes, but if you're not hitting threes, you're going to lose because you're not going to get inside. You're not going to have success. Now, I say that based on the teams I saw so far.
Right.
But you would have to have an unbelievable, at least two great inside players who can play off each other. But you got to be good. I mean, they just annihilated Loyola. They didn't let Loyola do anything they normally would do.
I know they smothered the other. I mean, but the Sweet 16 for Loyola is about as good as you can possibly hope for.
Yeah. And I mean, I watched the Oklahoma State game, and I'd watched Oklahoma State all year. And, they just didn't let it happen. They didn't let you get easy baskets inside. Oklahoma State always got easy baskets inside off of Cade Cunningham. But they were able to double team Cade Cunningham, and nobody else stepped up, and they couldn't hit from three. So that was that victory. So we'll see where they go now.
Yeah.
But you got four teams from the Pac-12 still alive today, going into today. And I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No.
I'm impressed with Baylor. Baylor's very physical. Their guards are very physical. They have a guard, I don't know his name, it reminds me of Baron Davis.
Yeah.
In that he leans on you and takes you out of your game. And they played a really good game. They played a tough game. They played a good game. And I like them. Of course, I'm still rooting for Gonzaga. And Gonzaga plays Creighton today, and we'll see how that goes. But Gonzaga is so well disciplined, so well schooled, and they run their offense. I would actually like to see Gonzaga Oregon State to see what happens.
Yeah, I would too. And what do you think of the kid from USC?
Two freshman phenoms, Caitlin for Iowa and Paige Buchers for UConn. That was a good matchup. UConn took Caitlin, I forget her last name, is out of the game. I mean, she was averaging 29 going into that game. She ended up with 21, but she was 7 for 21 for shooting. And they were on her like another uniform all game. Whereas UConn has just so many great players. And they had two people near triple-double in the same game. And they had great rebounding, great defense, and just they're relentless. So they played Baylor, which should be a really good game because Baylor's got a lot of size. So it'll be fun to watch. I mean, the women's tournament's really good.
Yeah, no question.
But the drop-off, the women's tournament's really good right now. When you get to the 16 or you get to the 8, they're all really, really good. But there's when you start with the whole tournament, there's a bigger drop-off in talent between the lower seeds in the women's group than there is in the lower seeds in the men's group.
Definitely.
So you won't see as many, you won't see the Oregon States and that surprises because the women's group, if you're a great women's basketball player, you're going to a great women's basketball school. You're not going to be a trailblazer going somewhere else usually. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Unless you're a late bloomer or you really want to stay close to home.
Yeah. Like Elaine Deladon, who went to UConn, ended up at, where'd she play?
I don't know.
Can't remember. But she started off at UConn and left and went to a smaller place. She went to Delaware.
Oh, okay.
Like that. So big week in the NBA.
Huge week in the NBA. Not as exciting as we hoped.
Run that and lead our discussion on that.
Yeah, I mean, every year you hear the trade deadline, you hear certain rumors around about certain players, and you're always expecting it to be bigger than it is. But this year we saw some movement.
A lot of movement. Just not the two players that everybody thought were going to move.
No. And then, the biggest name obviously still available is Bradley Beal, but they think that might be an off-season trade. And then we thought Kyle Lowry was, maybe the bigger move, but he did not want to leave Toronto.
Yep.
And it seems like Toronto basically asked for the house for a 35-year-old player who not only is a free agent at the end of this year, but from my understanding is he wanted a $50 million 2-year extension with whatever team signed him. And it seemed like the price was too steep for Philly. Miami went in another direction and got Oladipo. And then the Lakers, I think, are in a weird limbo where your two best players are out and out for a significant amount of time, and we don't know if they're going to be 100% this year in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So, and apparently it was Morton Tucker was the sticking point on the trade with him, and the Lakers did not want to let that guy go. The Summer League hero is apparently still highly valued in the Laker organization. I mean, I think he just turned 20 or just turned 19. So, I mean, I guess it's nice to have some youth on your team and not have everybody over the age of 30.
That's up Brooklyn right now.
Well, Brooklyn just got LaMarcus Aldridge. As we talked about off air, it seems like if you're a free agent or I guess a buyout candidate, that's your first call. You want to go play in Brooklyn. If you're chasing a ring, or you think you want to have the best chance to win a ring, you want to go play with Harden, Kyrie, and eventually Kevin Durant. Play under Steve Nash. Play in New York, but not for the disaster of the team that are the Knicks. Even though the Knicks are having a really nice season. But you still have James Dolan kicking fans out for wearing Fire Dolan t-shirts and, angering Patrick Ewing and doing all the James Dolan stuff he's always done. I think the most interesting player to move was probably Oladipo, who's having a not great season, despite the 20 points a game, but he's really pressing. It'll be interesting to see if he's able to go into Miami and fit in there seamlessly and buy into the program, or if he's going to be in, I need to make money this summer mode.
Well, when you go to Miami, Pat Riley usually wins and gets things his way.
He does.
So I don't think they make the move unless they were convinced he was going to buy in.
Except that, they didn't really give up anything. They gave up Kelly Olynyk, was it Avery Bradley and a second-round pick, and a pick swap. And Miami's obviously going to be better than Houston, so it really wasn't a very dangerous pick swap. So they gave up literally nothing to take a flyer on him. So, I mean, I think it was a much less risky move on their part. It was sort of like, this is a guy that's always wanted to come to Miami. Let's bring him in here. Let's test him out, see if he's Miami culture material, and if not, we didn't give up much to get him. And if you're Houston, he was sort of, you had a chance with the Harden trade. You could have had Ben Simmons in Philadelphia, who's, probably one of the top 20 players in basketball. You didn't want that deal. You could have had LeVert instead of Oladipo, and LeVert a younger player who seems like he fits in a little better and was going to be under team control, and you didn't get him either. So Houston just seems a little bit like, besides the 20-game losing streak, they just seem like they've just botched everything recently.
Like I said, decided they're going to blow the whole thing up and start all over again.
Yeah, and then the other big name that still is not signed anywhere as of yet, unless it happened this morning, has been Andre Drummond, who is an old-school center who can't shoot free throws, but can score in the post and can light it up on the rebound and defensive end.
You have any place you think he'll end up?
It sounded like he might end up as a Clipper. I know the Lakers are interested. I think Brooklyn was interested, but I think getting LaMarcus Aldridge probably eliminated that, which is probably the better play. Because LaMarcus Aldridge, I think, is an older player that can contribute a little bit more and isn't concerned about a new contract, which obviously Drummond would be. But I don't think, I think it's almost always the case at the deadline. It doesn't appear that anybody trade places that's really going to make a big difference come playoff time. It's going to come down more to the health of Kevin Durant, the health of Anthony Davis, and the health of LeBron James. If those guys are healthy, then...
I did like the signing of J.J. Redick and Dallas, though.
Yeah.
That one I liked. Because it free up some things. Porzingis seems to be playing better.
He does.
And Luka, and then so you give them another option and maybe open up the inside a little bit more if they get to worry about somebody that's going to consistently bang a three.
Oh, and I think you're going to get a lot of open looks with Luka, which JJ can obviously nail down. I think Dallas, I think we know what Porzingis is at this point. I don't know if he's ever going to be able to regain, where he's a healthy for a season kind of player. And that's what's holding them back. Like, when he has nights where he's on, they look unstoppable with him and Luka playing the two-man game and his range and his defensive prowess. But he just misses so much time,
Yeah.
And the best availability is availability, or the best ability is availability. And he's just not always available and not as available healthy. But Anthony Davis seems like he might be in a similar boat, as he continually seems to get banged up outside of last year.
Yeah. We'll see. It's going to be a fun year.
Yeah. And it's
nice watching March Madness, thinking about some of these guys that come out in the NBA too.
Well, speaking of that, what do you think of the center from USC, who they think is maybe player 1A now, or 1B? Like, Cade Cunningham is still probably the consensus number 1, but that USC center is like right there.
Well, I'm going to watch him. He plays today. I haven't really seen USC play.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to check that out.
Because he's an interesting one.
You saw the guys you like from Eastern Washington are transferring.
Yeah.
Both brothers.
I mean, that's sort of exciting on their part,
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, they played well, so we'll see what happens.
Yes, we will. Well, I think we can transition to, probably the biggest news of the week, and that's the San Francisco 49ers traded from pick 12 to pick 3.
They gave up 3 number 1s in the process, correct?
Correct. And you traded up to number 3. I mean, we know Trevor Lawrence is the first quarterback off the board. That's the draft really begins at pick 2, which means if you're the 49ers, you're comfortable with a couple of players at being there at number 3 and a couple of quarterbacks. So you don't trade all that capital to go get an offensive lineman.
No.
Or a wide receiver. So that means they're in love with, one of Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance most likely, as it seems like, the BYU kid who had a pretty nice pro day is still scheduled to go at number 2.
Interesting.
And then Miami made some interesting moves. Miami's been just GMing across the board like it's a video game. They obviously traded back to 12, picked up those first round picks, and then gave up one of those first round picks to move back to 6, which, assuming the quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4 as everybody's predicting, and maybe even 5 if somebody wants to move up with Cincinnati. And but if you're sitting at 6, that means you're going to get the tight end or one of the 3 best wide receivers in the draft if you're Miami, and you picked up an extra pick along the way, which seems like just fantastic GMing, They've got a really nice coach, a GM that's making moves, and if you're Tua, I guess that means Miami wants you to be their quarterback.
At least for another year.
Because there's no Fitzpatrick. They had a chance being, a team that probably won't be up that high again. If they had loved one of the guys better than you at number 3, they would have got him. So, unless they have eyes on Jimmy G in a trade or Sam Darnold in a trade, they're giving it to Tua. And I know I've seen it come.
Let's say you're the Dolphins.
Yes.
You take the tight end from Florida, or you take one of the receivers from Alabama.
I think I have to take the tight end of Florida.
That's what I was thinking.
It looks like
the coach is out of New England anyhow, and he knows those tight end offenses. He knows how important the tight end is.
Well, I think they said there's 23 wide receivers with top 3 round grades. And keeping in mind Miami also has another pick in the 20s. And then you look at Bateman out of Minnesota, you look at the kid out of Purdue, the kid out of Ole Miss, the receiver out of Florida. Like, even if you don't get one of the top 3, and assuming, maybe Waddle falls down the board a little bit, is sort of the forgotten guy coming off the injury. But it looks like Kyle Pitts is like, according to Kuiper and McShay, he's the highest graded tight end they've had in the last 20 years. And he's got, physical freak abilities, and that's a tight end is a much harder person to come by, a game-changing tight end than a wide receiver, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's a pick I would make.
And that's assuming, now everyone is just assuming, quarterbacks go pick 1, 2, 3, 4, and that the Bengals at 5 take a tackle to protect Joe Burrow. But they could easily take Kyle Pitts,
Or they could easily take the big receiver. Since A.J. Green is gone, right?
Right.
They could easily take that receiver from LSU.
Because it sounds like it's kind of a tricky thing, because it sounds like the draft is really deep at tackle, wide receiver, and cornerback. And, well, it looks like Penny Sewell, the kid out of Oregon, he's just 20 years old. He's got phenomenal physical traits, and the last time he played a football game, he was dominant. So that could be, the best left tackle in football for the next, decade. Or you could get the best tight end for the next decade, and hopefully in the second round pick up a quality offensive tackle still.
It's going to be fun to watch.
And I guess we can do our Steeler moment and welcome back Tyson Alualu, who...
Yes. And it might not seem like a big thing, but it is to me.
Well, according to PFF, which is the nerdy football website, he was the 14th best defensive lineman in football last year. And he doesn't make a lot of splash plays. But with TJ Watt and now Alex Highsmith and whoever else they have outside, and he eats up the middle, and he's just a great, solid player if it doesn't make mistakes. And you put him with Tuitt and Hayward, and now your front seven is once again probably a strength of your team.
Right.
And again, he was a first round pick out of Jacksonville, revitalized his career with the Steelers, and then this year as a free agent was going to go back to Jacksonville where his family still lives, including his kids, which I think is why he was going to go back in the first place.
Except that I read in the paper this morning that his family's building their dream house in Pittsburgh.
Oh, well, there you go. I guess they decided they would...
I heard the same thing you talked about, so let's see where that goes.
Well, I mean, maybe that was part of the decision. He went back home and they were like, do we really want to be Floridians? And they just, his family decided to move was the best for everybody, and now they're Pittsburgh Steelers for life.
So, now that Jimmy G does not appear to be the quarterback of the future for the 49ers.
Yes.
Do you think he's in the mix to be the quarterback of the future in New England?
I think Jimmy G is either going to stay there and be the bridge quarterback for a very raw Justin Fields or maybe even raw Trey Lance, unless they get blown away by an offer. And I don't know what that offer would have to be for San Francisco, but I don't think you would give up, because Jimmy G did lead his team to the Super Bowl. People seem to forget that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And while he seems to have some health issues, he might, again, if you're bringing in a Trey Lance who played one game of football this year, or a Justin Fields who seems like kind of a raw athlete, that still has some development to go as a quarterback, and even Zach Wilson, who really had one good season. It'd be really nice to have a veteran presence in there, and then, like with Patrick Mahomes, week 11, week 12, you turn it over to the young guy, get him some reps, and then he's your quarterback moving forward. But I'm sure if somebody, and I don't know who this would be, but if, they offered him a high 1 or a high 2, or a low 1 or a high 2 to bring in Jimmy G or a future 1, then the 49ers would probably have to do it.
Let me ask another question. Yeah. Are the 49ers going to hold on to that 3, or are they going to trade it for Deshaun Watson?
I don't think anyone is touching Deshaun Watson with a 10-foot pole right now.
What about Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson, I think they might pull the trigger. But I don't think you would trade Russell Wilson in the division.
Probably not.
Yeah, the Deshaun Watson thing is just, every day it just looks worse and worse. And, I don't know. I mean, there's a chance he might not...
It's worse and worse, but I'm still not seeing any... I'm kind of with the attorney here. I'm not seeing any evidence and any proof yet, so...
No, I know the last girl has witnesses that she supposedly called, and they can testify that she called him right after. I guess I would be nervous, if you're a professional athlete, you typically have a masseuse plus the team masseuse, and those are the only people you go to. You look at our boy James Harrison, he paid his own masseuse $100,000 a year to be his personal masseuse. Yep. And Tom Brady does the same thing, and Deshaun Watson certainly has more money than James Harrison, and probably more money than, he's got a lot of money. And to be calling girls and DMing girls on Instagram and having them come over and massage you as a professional athlete. And again, I'm not a big masseuse person, but I have had bad massages that have left me in a bad way for weeks. And I would want to make sure that whoever I'm bringing to be my masseuse isn't somebody I saw on Instagram.
Well, it just makes sense. If you're investing in your future.
Yeah.
And you know how important it is for your body to recover. The primary reason for having a masseuse is not for sex.
Right.
It's for body recovery.
Yeah. But again, like I said, I had a random massage person work occasionally with my masseuses, and he did something to my shoulder that messed up my shoulder for a couple weeks. And I just don't think if you're a professional athlete, it's smoke, it's not fire, and hopefully it all blows over. But I think if you're another team, I think you're much less likely to trade for him right now or give up a ton of capital for him right now. And if you're the Texans, you may not want to trade. I mean, it's toxic as the situation may seem even before all this came out. Like, you may not want to sell low. You might want to wait till this thing plays itself out and he's either exonerated or not, you know?
Yeah. Or on the other hand, you could be like the Pirates and have a relief pitcher like Felipe Vasquez that everybody wanted, and now he's in jail and nobody wants him.
That's true.
So, it's interesting how it all plays out. But speaking of the Pirates, I want to talk about Kevin Newman, the Pirates starting shortstop, who was hitting over 700 in spring training. And it would be tough to hit 700 in batting practice.
It's true.
But I am really excited about that. Adam Frazier's hitting up about 500 in spring training. They got a couple other players that are having good years. Brian Reynolds is hitting over 300. Polanco's having a good year. So maybe I'm not going to bet that they lose more than 58 games. Maybe I'm going to bet the over and hope they win 60.
There you go.
At least I'm a little encouraged by the offense that the Pirates did not have last year. And they're playing, at least in spring training, at least they're hitting the ball hard. Mickey Brian Hayes looks like a superstar who just turned down an opportunity for the Pirates to tie him up through his arbitration. So they were hoping to get him in with McCutcheon kind of a deal.
Yeah, they were.
And he's betting on himself, which you can't argue with.
No. And hopefully this organization is building themselves in a position where when Hayes is a free agent that he would consider staying in Pittsburgh. So
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. And then on my downside, again, there's another article in the Tampa paper today by Glasnow and how much happier and better he is and how much he's changed since he's come to Tampa and not trying to do the things the Pirates want him to do, which he said were antiquated, and not letting him be himself and pitch the way he can pitch. So, as I said to you offline, to me, that trade marked the lowest point in Pirate history, even lower than the cocaine scales in the 80s.
yeah.
Because it was just a bad. I mean, you gave up an all-star outfielder, probably an all-star pitcher, and you gave up your number one prospect, and who knows how good that one's going to be.
Yeah.
For a guy that you signed, he didn't work out, and you got nothing back for him when he left.
And he's back
So
in
you gave
Tampa.
away three of your best players for nothing.
And that particular player is actually just signed with Tampa Bay this year.
Right. So, I mean, you couldn't have a worse trade other than Babe Ruth to the Yankees.
Yeah. And especially because you weren't.
That's where it is for me.
And especially when you look back at that, you're trading these young prospects for, let's even just call him a proven pitcher at the time. But you weren't one starter away from competing for a World Series.
No.
So the move itself made no sense in the time, where it's like you were taking almost a 30-year-old pitcher and giving up three incredible young prospects for a year that you weren't a pitcher away. And again, if you're the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Red Sox, and you feel like you're one starter away from having a better rotation and competing for the, not just the division but the World Series, then you make that trade, maybe. But just awful. But
Just awful.
But as we said, they still have really cool uniforms. Rappers still wear their hats, so
Well, so you follow hockey more than I do. You have hockey commentary.
I'll work up something for next week.
Okay.
Um,
I don't want to shortchange any of our listeners that enjoy hockey. I'm just not knowledgeable enough to comment on it. Other than I like the Lightning and the Penguins, but other than that, I don't know a lot.
yeah, and Ovechkin is still just absolutely phenomenal. He just puts up highlights constantly. And again,
My hockey moment, though, for the week is Minnesota, Duluth, and North Dakota, the longest hockey game in history, the longest NCAA game of any kind in history. 5 overtimes.
yeah, it's crazy.
And I saw one of the highlights that could have ended the game. The puck went up in the air and landed on top of the net.
It was incredible.
I mean, the highlights were unbelievable. Tough game to lose. And congratulations to Minnesota Duluth.
Definitely.
Let's see. Entertainment moment. I've got one. Started watching New Tricks. It's New Tricks and Old Dogs with New Tricks on Amazon Prime. And the premise is it's a female detective that shot a dog and got a lot of ridicule and abuse. So they moved her out of the front lines and gave her a dead squad, or whatever they call them, dead files.
Cold case? Yeah.
They put her in charge of cold case. And because of resources, she could only hire some part-time people who were supposed to be retired detectives. And there wasn't a deep pool, so each one of these guys that she hired is kind of quirky. One guy had a mental breakdown, and one guy was kind of sleazy, and the other guy was her mentor. So it's kind of interesting. And then they go on and take the cases on. And we watched the first episode, which was a pilot last night. I was pretty intrigued, and I enjoyed it, so we'll continue to watch that.
Okay.
But then tonight is City on the Hill with Kevin Bacon, that I thought was a really good series on Showtime last year, or the year before last, I should say. And so I'm excited about that coming back tonight. Really, really. It's set in Boston in the early 90s.
Okay. I didn't have an entertainment moment, sadly, this week. I watched some stuff, but nothing worth mentioning on the program. But I had a weird food moment, and I actually had it this morning.
Okay.
Have you heard of Ruby chocolate?
Ruby chocolate? No.
Well, we have dark chocolate. We have milk chocolate. We have controversial sort of the white chocolate, which is still a chocolate, even though it's, a little bit askew. And then recently in the Amazon, they discovered Ruby. And Ruby is basically, it becomes a pink chocolate. So we got a bar from Whole Foods just because we figured we wanted to try Ruby chocolate. And initially, it looks and has the same mouthfeel, I'll go cooking show on you, of chocolate. It starts out when you get a hint of sort of a white chocolate flavor, which I know is, it seems like that's a love or hate thing. And then a lot of people reported it having, and again, I don't know if it's because of the pink color, but some people thought it had a bit of a raspberry taste to it. But when I tried it, and again, I was almost expecting a berry-like flavor. Again, it's pink. And I actually felt like I tasted a bit of cheese, as bizarre as that is, in the chocolate. And more of a cheddary sort of cheese than like a cheesecake cheese. So needless to say, I'm not the biggest fan of Ruby chocolate, but I had never, a new kind of chocolate is always exciting. So I felt obligated to try it, and I don't know what to say. I would say if you're a white chocolate person, it's probably something worth trying, or if you just want to try all the chocolates of the world. But it's different. We got it at Whole Foods, so.
Okay.
But I don't think I'll finish the bar. But I do think, despite being in COVID times, I have a few people in my bubble that I think I could give it to let them try it because, save them the money.
We did cook our Elegant Farmer caramel apple pie this week, and as usual, it was outstanding. I mean, it's one of the best things you'll find on Gold Belly. It's very, very consistent. You comes and it's already baked, and you warm it up in a brown paper bag, and it's I had it with some Culver's fresh vanilla frozen custard. It was outstanding.
And I would say, we're obviously big Gold Belly fans on this show, as we've mentioned it. I can't say how many times. We should definitely have a sponsorship, and even if it's like a $10 gift card every month, who knows? But when you get a pizza from Gold Belly, it's probably like maybe in the neighborhood of 10% less good than it would have been if you got it at the place. But I feel like the Elegant Farmer, I feel like with some of the desserts, you're getting exactly as it was, and I think that's one of them.
Yeah.
Where that's...
I think if you buy dessert on Gold Belly, odds are that it is pretty close. Or if you buy barbecue pretty much comes out pretty close too.
Pretty close, yeah. Depending on...
some things I've had, I thought, like, whenever I get something from Bartolini's, the deep dish Chicago pizzas or the thin crusts, they both taste really, really good. Much better than any other frozen pizza I've ever had.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're getting great quality, and you're getting a taste. Like, again, when you can't travel or you just want to try pizza from around the world, it's still the best spot. But I was just sort of complimenting the pie, where I'm like, I think this pie, if you got it fresh in the store, would be the restaurant, the exact same.
And then I've had cheese sticks from Gold Belly that were really good, and I've had lobster rolls from Gold Belly that were really good. So, I guess most of the stuff is really good.
Oh, it's great. It just, yeah. And then I'm going to tell people a funny thing. So, Dad was kind enough to send us and my brother some Gold Belly for Easter, and he told me to go pick out something to eat. And while I was there, I noticed that Magic City, the world famous Atlanta strip club, most recently from Lou Williams going there during COVID NBA bubble time and almost costing his team some wins, they now have wings available on Gold Belly, including a Sweet Lou lemon pepper wing. And I have to say, you know, when all the jokes came out, like who goes to a strip club to eat wings, but they're on Gold Belly, and if you look at the pictures of Magic City wings, they look pretty incredible. So maybe Lou Williams was really going there for the wings.
You know what, Jason? I'm thinking I might have to order some just to see what strip club wings taste like. 'Cause maybe that is the reason people go there.
Maybe it is. Maybe we've been wrong all these years. That Lou Williams is right. These are just great wings. He's just supporting local business, and he just knew what he's doing. But at the very least, if you were ever curious as to what they look like, I mean, you're sure you could have Googled on it, but like, they've got their glamour shots on Gold Belly, and I was like, these wings look legitimately good.
Well, now you got me intrigued. I'm gonna, as soon as I hang up, I'm gonna go to my iPad and go to Gold Belly, see what they look like.
I think you have to.
I think I have to too.
Well, I think that's probably about. Next week we'll have Elite Eight, right? We'll have the Elite Eight set. Maybe
We'll be down to the Final Four.
by the time we record, yeah.
Yep. So look forward to that. Enjoy your March Madness this week. It'll be after opening day, also.
After opening day, and then we'll have a good, 7 days of watching LaMarcus Aldridge and Victor Oladipo and some of the other guys getting a couple of games as their new teams to see, what we get to look at.
Absolutely. And again, and as always, more NFL draft speculation.
Oh yes, it's getting close. I'm very excited.
All right, everybody, have a great week and happy Easter in advance.